So let's make a quick video. You're a somewhat Christian.
Yeah, so I would describe myself as culturally 50% Catholic and 50% Maronite. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what Maronite is, we originate from Lebanon and the Syrian mountains.
Cool.
We hid there when the Muslims came to kill us.
Interesting. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that, because Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made a whole charter to protect Christians. Have you heard of that charter?
I do. I have heard that the Prophet Muhammad did say that you need to protect the people of the book, and by the book he means like Christians and Jews and so on.
Yeah. So the very bad Muslims who are doing that, and even I'm subject to persecution, even though I'm a Muslim. So that goes to show that there are bad Muslims out there, and they need guidance.
Yeah, I would say there's bad people everywhere, but the biggest enemy is atheists.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. The most, when I say biggest enemy, it's not the atheists.
Another word for atheist is non-believers.
Sure. And I agree. I don't hate on atheists. I feel sorry for them, because they're subjecting themselves to more depression. Because when you don't have God, you don't have meaning in your life. You cannot actually have meaning in your life. Okay? Because if you disbelieve in God, and disbelieving is that you don't just, it's not an, it's actually an act or an effort to disbelieve in God. Because if you look at the universe, it's impossible that it was made by accident. So you have to make an effort to disbelieve, okay? And when you disbelieve, you're effectively saying this whole universe was an accident. And if there was an accident, then there can be no purpose, because it's all random, okay?
I agree 100%.
Thank you. And again, I talk about this guy called Viktor Frankl, who is a very famous psychologist on effectively happiness, and he said that you need meaning, a higher purpose, to be happy. That's what a lot of Westerners don't understand.
True happiness comes through God.
Yeah.
Anything else is a fake happiness, like taking a pill to treat depression.
Yeah. Oh, we're having a really interesting discussion, because that's the kind of stuff I talk about, right? That's very true, and you can demonstrate this. Like the Quran says, that hearts can find comfort in the remembrance of God. Okay, it's like a test. Okay, and even a Christian would agree with this, that it's a test that when you remember God, you feel peace. Do you agree?
I do agree with that.
Right? And the Quran also said the people who are disbelievers, i.e. people who hide from the light of God, yeah, they are people who are like chasing a mirage in the desert. So and you, coming from you don't have to lean forward, by the way.
I agree, and God is an energy source, so people who like stay away from the sun and overuse sun cream, you know.
Yeah. Okay, kind of, but let me. You as somebody from a hot country might appreciate what a mirage is.
Interesting fact: I come from Lebanon, the only so-called Arab country that doesn't have a desert, so we don't really have mirages in Lebanon. But
you might still know what it is.
It's debatable that Lebanon is an Arab country. I would argue it's Phoenician, and that God placed a massive mountain between the Arab lands and Lebanon.
Cool. Anyway, so what the very carefully chosen, and I'm interested if you just agree with this, very carefully chosen words in the Quran is to not just say the word illusion, but to say mirage, which is a special kind of illusion. Why is it a special kind of illusion? It's the kind of illusion that like if you're a thirsty person, because these are the words used in the Quran, it says the people who are disbelievers are like thirsty people in a desert who chase a mirage. Now, a mirage is an illusion that disappears.
I'll tell you a modern day mirage. The girls that use filters on Instagram.
Yeah, that's also part of the wider mirage. So if you don't believe in God, you're constantly going to be unhappy. Basically, as Andrew Tate calls it, he says it's the hedonistic black hole. Okay, you're never happy. Okay, and you're an addict to everything materialistic. Okay, and so you're constantly chasing. And by the way, you don't have to lean. You're in shot. But you're constantly chasing. So do you agree with that?
Yeah, and the most unhappy people are the ones that realize and truly believe in God, when they realize that they're in a system that is against God, they have a choice. They can get depressed about it, or they can fight about it. And one thing I will say is, God believes in self-defense, and God created humanity for the reason the devil got stripped of his powers in as an angel and brought down was because he was not accepting that God created something in his image, and he gave us freedom of choice. Humans are the only
Creature that has free will.
yeah, that has free will,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
I don't
and this-
believe that Satan is a fallen angel, but that's another discussion. But yeah.
okay, we can discuss that as well.
Yeah.
But because of that, because we have free choice, God has chosen himself not to know the choices we're going to make. He has, because God can do anything he wants, so he has chosen to give us free will. So that means he does not know what the exact choice we will make is.
Okay, so I do. Okay, this might sound weird, but let's say, did you know that time can bend? Have you heard of that?
Time is man-made.
Okay, anyway, so what I'll say, we won't necessarily agree on this, but God does know everything that's going to happen, but he gives you the free will to do it. So how can
No,
you square those
no.
two things?
God can know, but chooses not to.
Okay, so in Islam, I'll just go by what Islam is all-knowing. I'm sorry, God is all-knowing in Islam,
Yeah,
okay?
if you're all powerful, you can make a choice because you have eyes, you have free will. You could choose not to look at something. That's a choice.
Sure. Okay, let me just explain my point. You don't have to agree, but I'll just we're kind of going all over the place, which is fine. You're a seeker, or you're a lovely person who's having an open discussion, and I'm sharing information, and let's see how wherever this goes. So it's kind of random, but anyway. So God gives us free will, yet God can know everything that's going to happen. How is that possible? This is one explanation, but the point is God knows somehow, even if my explanation is not right. So we know, according to modern physics, that time can bend. Okay, now let's say if time can bend all the way around, so you can know. If God is outside the universe, he can see what's going to happen ahead of time, but he allows it to happen either way. That's what I believe. So I don't know if that confuses people. For me, that makes a lot of sense.
What I believe is God created us in his image. We all have a part of God, a spirit, a part of God in us. If all combined, we get really close to God. We can become a God if we all become one humanity working together and create heaven on earth. That's what I believe. And I believe God, the Father, communicates through our spirit connected to our brain, but our brain is limited, and therefore there's no human that will ever be born perfect. Jesus and all of
So
the
let's
Christians.
do one at a time, because you made some points, and I want to kind of.
1 second.
Okay, go on then.
We're just about to finish.
Yeah.
A lot of people think Jesus was perfect, right? He died practically. Well, no human is perfect, but he died very holy and divine. But Jesus was racist, and the reason he was racist was because of his Jewish upbringing, and he got schooled by a Lebanese woman, and this is all in the Bible.
Okay, so you made a couple of points. I can't remember all of them, but you made, and I agree with them in different ways. So you said we're all in the image of God, and I agree with that. I understand that. What that means is that the reason why it's necessary that we were in the image of God is that we can understand what God wants from us. So we have some qualities, like what an image is. It's not God, but it's a lower level. It's like it has some representation. An image is not the real thing. It's not the real object. It has some representation of it, right? And the reason why that was necessary, and why God doesn't tell us random facts, it tells us important information. So when he tells us we are the image of God, he's telling us some important information. Is that when we do something bad, and we get angry with it, God will also be angry with it. So we should understand God to some extent. So we should know when we're doing something good or bad.
I agree. We all have a spirit, and deep down, they call people psychopaths. I call them disabled. Their brain is just not connected to their spirit very well. But fundamentally, right, deep down, your spirit knows. You're right, because of the image. Like Everything we have is a manifestation. So we either manifest God's divinity or we go against it. And a lot of people, and this is an interesting point. I can't remember his name now, but someone once mentioned how he doesn't believe in God because there's an insect that is literally, its life is.
Stephen Fry.
There you go.
Yeah.
To burrow into someone's eye. So to this guy, I will say this: nature was created by God as a test. Instead of blaming God, who's given you the prophets to explain to you how you can create the kingdom of heaven, what you should really look at is yourself and humanity, because we humans can eradicate that insect and bring back that human eye. We have the capability of doing it because we're in the image of God. God can do everything. So we can bring back, we could live for hundreds of years. We can regrow organs. Yeah. It's all possible.
Okay, so now what we're talking about is why is there suffering in the world, and I was planning on talking about it because there's one man, a very nice man, and he's struggling to understand why there is suffering, and he likes to understand God as a kind God, but if he's all powerful, how can bad things happen? And you've also already given a very sensible answer, which is that God enables us to choose, first of all, choose right and wrong, and then on that basis it also gives us the intelligence to eradicate some of these really bad things. And if we choose selfishly not to use our intelligence and not to help these poor people and save them from these bad things, then these bad things happen. Because if there were no bad effects, then we would never learn the difference between good and bad. We won't, But then that's not the only, and I think, but I don't normally start from there. I start from something you might agree with, which is, first of all, these people like Stephen Fry, who's a famous comedian, but he likes to pretend, I don't want to insult him, but he likes to pretend he's intelligent because he's got a British accent, and Americans think that's intelligent just because he speaks British or something.
What you're saying is he's posh upbringing.
Yeah, right. So it doesn't make you intelligent, and I'd actually commented on a video, I think today or yesterday, about he's finally realizing the need for God, but he doesn't quite get there, right? He forgets some very basic things, which is, look at all the things God is giving you, and he focuses on that thing, on the bad things, or the few bad things, compared to so many beautiful things that God is giving. Endless good things like air, water, life, opportunities.
God didn't. What if I told you God created a system, right, called nature, like a counteracting system that is random in nature, and these things that we blame God for, like these insects, were created by random. It wasn't God's intentional doing to do that. It's there, and it's up to us humans to deal with these problems. It's not up to God. God has given us, through the prophets and through giving us our spirit and life, all the tools we need to take on these challenges, but it's humans that fail to do it.
Okay, so I disagree anything is random. So, and how do I disagree that? If you look, okay, so some people look at the universe, or people who don't consider science, give me 1 minute, they think everything just happens, air is just some fluffy stuff, they think blood is really simple stuff, it's just red stuff. But, give me one minute, right? Okay, if you look even at hemoglobin, and you need about 1 billion of them to make a pin drop of blood, right? One of these hemoglobin things are so complicated that it should have taken longer than the age of the universe. People don't understand that, and my battery's dying out.
So let me
okay, my point is, so if you look at the functioning of the universe, it's even our planet that's keeping us alive, it's so precise that you will realize there are no random events. So all of them were done by purpose for you to learn something from it. Yeah.
My belief is God is like a coder. So for all coders out there, you can make the choice, okay, to either like make something be random or not be random. And God has chosen certain things to be random, like viruses, right? And that's his choice, because God can do anything. So I think coders would understand that. But while other things, like you're talking about hemoglobin, because God created us, as a coder, you'll notice, by choice, you can create something to be not random. So if you're like a gamer, I'm a
coder, yeah. Okay, so I know what you're talking about. So random
I can say
numbers.
Like damage is either 10 or it could be randomly selected 10 to 50.
Yeah, are you a coder? You sound like it.
I've created a game called
Yeah.
Super Starfinder.
Cool. Okay. So yes, there are random numbers that you can generate in coding, but I think what looks like coincidence. There's only. Have you watched V for Vendetta?
I have watched that movie.
Okay. Then you will get the thing when he says there are no coincidences, only the illusion of coincidence. Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
You're not as big a fan then.
Yeah.
Okay. The point is that it looks random, but nothing is random because our tiny brains can't fully understand. It looks random. Okay. But if you look at the precision in which things are done, there's no randomness.
God can create randomness if he wants, because God is all powerful.
Sure, maybe randomness to some extent, but not beyond his control. Okay. Now, the reason why this is an important point in the question of suffering, there's another verse of the Holy Quran that says, "No soul is tested beyond its capacity." Right? The idea is that even if there are big struggles, you are primed, you are prepared for that struggle. Every single struggle, even if there's a worm in your eyes or whatever it is, right? You are prepared for that and you're ready for that. It's not beyond your ability to handle it, okay, which might sound strange, but it makes sense.
I would say it's not beyond the collective humanity's ability. Like
No.
every human's limited. There's certain things I can't do. All right, and there's certain things you can't do, and we all have a meat suit that is limited, but humanity as a whole is unlimited.
Sure. So I'm not saying if you have a worm in your eye, you can do eye surgery to yourself.
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
saying that. Yes, there's a collective responsibility, but you are primed and prepared to handle the pain and suffering, and it's not random pain and suffering. Everything that happens is for you to develop into a more beautiful human being. So God doesn't. I don't like it when people say God has created this world to test you, because that makes God look sadistic, as in he wants to just randomly test you. It's like if you're training to be a doctor. Oh, why do I have to train? Why can't I just magically learn everything? No, you have to. The test or the learning is to differentiate the people who truly deserve to be doctors and the ones who don't. It's not a perfect test, because some people who don't deserve to be doctors also become doctors. But God's tests are the best
People who
tests.
deserve to be doctors don't get to become doctors.
Yes, that's often because they don't like being part of a very bad system sometimes, right? Big pharma, etc.
Or the system is just, they don't tick all the right boxes because, they might not have the right family connections or the right teachings.
You're talking about wasta, aren't you, in Arab countries?
Oh, yeah.
What's family connections, yeah.
Can can I just discuss another point before
Yeah.
your battery runs out?
Yeah.
And then we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
So you accepted earlier that Muhammad used to have like excrement thrown at him, right?
By his enemies, yes.
Yeah, by his.
And he was kind to all of them. He even went to, according to one narration, one day the lady who used to throw rubbish into his kitchen, excrement and all bad things, she stopped doing it, and he was like, "Oh, where's that lady?" And she found out he was sick, so he went to visit her and to check how she was.
Which shows that the Prophet Muhammad was originally a really nice guy. But don't you think it's the fact that Muslims can't eat pork because they eat their own shit? Don't you think that's a manifestation of his fear about when he used to have excrement thrown at him?
So God tells us all over in the Quran all sorts of things you should eat, what's healthy for you, what's not healthy for you. The Quran says whatever I forbid is bad for you, and whatever I say is allowed is good for you, right? So it's the same with so just to clarify, it's not Muslims that eat their own shit, it's the swine, the pigs, right? Okay, so they eat lots of rubbish and they have a very short digestive period, which means they don't get all the toxins out of their flesh. So when you eat their flesh, you're eating the toxins in their flesh. And so God, the all-knowing, who knows his creation, okay, said this is not for eating, it has its other functions.
So what I believe is Muhammad at the time was trying to, as you say, teach people to eat healthy things, which is important. But at the time, and we even know now, like pigs uncooked can be, like badly cooked, can be dangerous. But in the Western world, with our equipment, we know, in the UK, you could safely eat pork. So I would say, in this time, it's safe to eat pigs. Do you agree?
I'm not an expert, but like you said, you did agree that even if you cook it well, from what I've studied or roughly searched, because I'm not an expert in this, that it can still be bad for you. But let's say you got the perfect equipment, okay, then you might be able to eradicate all the bad things. But this advice from God is for everybody, for all time, and you might not have all the perfect equipment. And having said that, can I just add that you are allowed to eat a pig if you can't eat anything else, but it's better just to eat really healthy things rather than go to the things that might not be so healthy.
Okay, I agree with that. Like, that's what. Yeah, no, I agree with that point.
You know what? I find you very educated, and you're very humble that you agree with things rather than just dispute them for no reason.
Well, I mean, if I find a point I agree with, then I'll agree with it.
Cool. I'm glad to find some, let's say, intelligent people, because earlier on I was just like being threatened and everything, and nobody wanted to hear what I've got to say, and they had no response, and they didn't want to come on camera because they knew I had a response for all their points. Yeah, right. So I'm glad maybe I had to go through that to appreciate all the more beautiful people like yourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're beautiful yourself, and thanks for your time as well. It's been very informative. Thanks for your teachings.
Yeah.
And, and yeah, make sure you subscribe to this to Khalid's channel, and I'll be on your podcast more.
Yeah, it'll be great. Cool. Yeah.
Great.
And by the way, it's not my teaching Islam, but I'm just sharing whatever. But anyway, I think that's what you meant. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Alaikum.